Okay, today we're going to look at the second day of solving equations with variables on both sides. Yesterday we learned about the strategy of solving an equation with variables on both sides. We learned that it is necessary to what we call declare a side for the variable before beginning to solve. Today what we're going to do is work out problems that have to be simplified a little bit before we declare a side. So in terms of importance, you do not declare a side until it is simplified first. So overall our strategy for solving will be very straightforward. And this is pretty much for the rest of your math careers, because I actually did a 5-step solving strategy for all of my classes that I did to get my math degree, and it was pretty similar to this. First thing I did was I made sure the left side was simplified, and then I made sure the right side was simplified. So this could be anything from combining like terms to distributing, combining like terms to distributing if you have to on the right. Once that happens, if there are two x's or x on both sides, then I declare a side for my variable. And then because I was home, I followed the same steps that I always did, which is add or subtract a number and then divide, and that was it. So notice that we did not do any solving really until after we manipulated the information. Again, this is not a solving step. This is a simplifying step. This is a simplifying step. This is even a simplifying step. And so you really only solve in step number 4. And so this is one of the reasons that people think solving is difficult, because many people believe that solving takes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps. That is false, because really the only time you really solve is when you get to there. It's the organization that makes us work. So this part isn't so bad once you realize that this is just us making the question look like we want it to look, and then we solve it to go from there. So again, everything that you do here is not solving. Some of it is just simplifying, organizing it, making it easier to work with, and getting the x onto the one side that we want it to be on. So what we've got to do is learn to base our understanding of what we call readiness for each side of one equation. Keep in mind there can be no parentheses. Also keep in mind there should only be one variable and one constant. And so when we look at it, if we see any parentheses on one side, that means we need to simplify it by distributing. If we see any variables, or if we see more than one variable on one side, it means we need to combine terms. If we see more than one constant on one side, we need to combine terms. And then finally, if necessary, after we do all that, we should probably eliminate fractions by using the trick that I showed you. Again, those steps are not solving, they're just considered simplifying steps and making everything easier to work with. So let's work through a few problems together to make sure we got this down. So again, when I look at A, I look here, the first thing I see are parentheses, which means that I am going to distribute this to get 3q minus 15. And then I look over here and I say, hey, this is weird. I've got 3 terms and the most I should have is 2. Notice that 8 and 2 can be put together, so I turn that into 2q plus 10. Now, what I notice is that I have both sides simplified, but there's a variable on both sides, so what I'm going to do is move the smaller amount, like I did yesterday, by subtracting 2q from both sides. 3, 2 minus 2q is 1q minus 15 equals 10. And again, now we are home. Add 15 to both sides. 1q is equal to 25. Remember that 1q is the same as just q, which is 25. So notice again, that we know how to do. This we know how to do. That takes us to what we pretty much learned how to do yesterday, and again, everything just kind of fits right into place. Solving, if you ask me, is one of the easiest things to do. The problem is, if you still are not up to speed, it can be extremely confusing and extremely difficult. So just kind of keep that in mind. You can catch up. You might want to watch some of the old videos on your own or come in before or after school, but it's really not that bad overall. Looking at B, the first thing I see are parentheses, so I need to distribute. But keep in mind, 2r has nothing to do with those parentheses. What we do here is we distribute that negative, which means that everything becomes opposite. So minus 5 and plus r equals 13 plus 2r. Again, looking at this, this is still not ready because I have 3 terms. And remember, I can only have one variable on this one side, so now I need to put 2r and r together, which makes 3r minus 5 equals 13 plus 2r. I think this is going to be boring because we again will have one r. But let's see what happens. Again, this has r and a number, so we're fine. So we need to declare a side for our variable, and I'm going to move the 2 r's because 2 is smaller than 3. 3r minus 2r again is 1r minus 5 equals 13. We are home now, so we add 5 to both sides. getting 1r equals 18, and again 1r is the same as r, so r is equal to 18. Very easy, very simple. It's just putting things together and again making everything more and more complex. Those of you who are up to speed, it's not anything at all. Those of you who are falling behind, it seems like I'm giving you 20 more things to learn, but it's really not that bad once you get it. C, again, the first thing I see on the left is parentheses, so again I'm going to have to distribute this negative, bring down my 8, minus 3, and then minus b equals, well here again I see a parenthesis, so I have to distribute this negative, b plus 9. Do not try to move that if there are parentheses. As long as there are parentheses, you cannot solve. So again, first thing we have to do is move the parentheses. Next thing we do is we combine terms because we have an 8 and a negative 3, which makes 5 minus b equals b plus 9. From there, we need to declare a side for our b's. We have a positive b and a negative b. Of course, negative b is smaller. So add b to both sides. We get 5 equals 2b, because b plus b is 2, plus 9. Now we are home. We simply subtract 9 from both sides. 5 minus 9 is negative 4. Divide by 2. Getting negative 2 as our answer for b. Not tough, not hard. It's just, again, combining a whole bunch of steps. The first step we know to do because all we do is distribute. The second step we know to do because all we do is combine terms. The third step we know how to do. We just move the b's to one side, and from there we were home and we got to where we needed to go. So again, the questions don't really get tougher. They just add one more thing, and that's it. It's just more and more responsibilities, more and more choices. But as long as you are taking your time, I think it should work for you. The only thing that's going to happen is the more times you have to do math, the more chances of you making a mistake. So just slow down and make sure you're careful. For example, on this, I see parentheses, and so the first thing I have to do is distribute this 4. And so I do 5g minus 20, right? Because that's 4 times negative 5 plus 12g equals, well, looking over here, I don't have parentheses, but I do have like terms. 1 minus 2 makes negative 1g plus 1. Looking at the left side, it's still not ready because I have 3 terms, and so what I can do here is put these two together. 5g and 12g makes 17g minus 20 equals negative 1g plus 1. Now what I do is say, hey, I've got g's on both sides. I got to move the smaller one. Of course, the negative one is smaller than the positive one. And so you get 18g minus 20 equals 1. Now what you do is you are home now, so you go ahead and add your 20 to both sides to get rid of that number. And then you divide by 18. The problem with 21 and 18 is they can both be divided by 3. And so 21 divided by 3 is 7. 18 divided by 3 is 6. 7 over 6 should be your final answer on that. Alright? And I think that pretty much covers about the majority of the tough stuff you're going to see. And so now that we're becoming better at solving, it's time to open our understanding to application problems, or what some of you call word problems. Keep in mind that the only part that makes application problems difficult is determining what numbers get variables and which numbers do not. So let's look at a couple questions here and then get ready to get on to our work. One question on your note says you have a part-time job. You work for 3 hours on Friday, 6 hours on Saturday. You also receive an allowance of $20 per week. You earn $92 per week. How much do you earn per hour at your part-time job? One of the things you need to learn to do is identify if you have a total amount. And if you read this, the total amount that I have is that I earn $92 per week. So I would put 92 equals, because obviously everything is going to add up to be your total. And so now we have to consider what we are making in terms of money. Well, if I work 3 hours on Friday, remember you usually get paid per hour. I don't know how much, so I'm going to put 3x for that, because it's 3 times however much I get per hour. If I work 6 hours on Saturday, I'm going to add on 6x, because again I get 3 hours of whatever I get paid plus 6 hours of whatever I get paid. It says I also get an allowance of $20 per week, and that's just a flat 20. So I'm just going to add 20 onto that. Alright, so again, I get however much per hour for 3 hours on Friday, however much per hour times 6 hours on Saturday, $20 at some point during the week. Here is my equation. And once you get to that equation, I think it should be easy to solve. We combine our like terms to get 92 equals 9x plus 20. We are now home. We subtract 20. Getting 72 equals 9x. Dividing by 9. Getting 8 for x, which means we get $8 per hour at our job. And so again, notice it wasn't tough once we determined that we had a total, and once we set everything else to add up to that total, especially if there's a total. It really makes it an easy question because the total is obviously going to sit on its own and wait for everything else to kind of add up to be it. Here's another one where you get a total. It says Tony's cell phone bill averages $39.20 per month. This is based on a fixed fee of $27.50 and 15 cents per minute usage. They want to know the number of minutes Tony averages per month. Again, total wise, this is his bill per month. So I would put $39.20 equals, because that is the total. So everything else is going to add up to it. Pretty much what you have to remember is that a fixed fee is something that gets charged once and once only. So $27.50 is just what they charge you no matter what. And so that $27.50 does not get a variable. The key word here is that you get 15 cents per minute. And so that's what tells you that you get a variable here. So plus 0.15. And since it's per minute, I'll put an M there. You could put an X, but I'm just going to put an M there. And again, now notice that we are home. All we have to do now is subtract the number that is not attached to X. And even though these are ugly numbers, we do have a calculator on our side. So 39.20 minus 27.50 gives us 11.7 equals 0.15 M. And again, 0.15 M I can now divide by 0.15. Again, I do have a calculator, so it shouldn't be that bad. I do 11.7 divided by 0.15, and I get the answer of 78. So it means that I have obviously used my phone, or Tony has used his phone for 78 minutes per month, if that is his average. Again, if you see a word problem, look for a total first. We'll talk about other different types, but for right now, if you see a word problem that you are kind of stuck on, look for a total. See if there's anything at all that represents a total, and then have everything else just add or combine to make that total. It says, remember that the daily goal for us is to practice the new skill and to get better. Pretty much at our old skills. Also remember, you need to ask for help on questions that have been giving you issues. Now, if you've been missing the same question every single day, and you haven't asked for help, haven't brought it up, or haven't done anything like that, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you understand that once Friday hits, or Thursday this week hits, you're going to be taking a quiz on this information. So take the rest of the day to work on the problems on the classroom practice worksheet, please. Because some of these problems are getting bigger, this is a PS, it might be necessary for some of you to work them out on a separate sheet of paper. I noticed that some of you are able to fit it on the worksheet, which is fine. But some of you write big, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you're adjusting by actually doing it on a separate sheet of paper, so you don't have to fit everything into a small space, because I'd rather not waste paper by giving you 3 pages for this, but I have to fit them into 2 pages. So again, just knock that out and do what you can.